do beg your pardon, I seem to be whispering. This is episode 18 of Project the Doctor Who Dudley... Haven't we done this? Yeah, I thought we were up to episode 51. Why are we doing episode 18?
What do you mean I did this wrong the first time?
Welcome back, then, to episode 18 of the Dudley Simpson Is Doctor Who Project, where it would seem that history is never quite as we remember it. By now, I know that you will have watched repeatedly my 3 recent episodes, 48 through 50, featuring new transcriptions of music from Season 5's Fury from the Deep. Besides prompting all new material, the existing music tracks from the score found on the Blu-ray allowed me to ruefully, but satisfyingly, return to an earlier transcription and correct my mistakes. To be honest, I'm being rather cruel to myself. At the time, I admitted there were challenges to hearing the notes correctly using only the surviving audio of the story, along with the distorted piano sound which deceived my ears in some low register sections. Most easy to forgive is that I dared to transcribe the music of the horrific episode 4 scene where Van Lutyens, screaming for his life, is dragged down in the pipeline by weed and foam. Bravely tried to cut through the noise. Some educated guessing was unavoidable. So then, I was very pleased, slightly disheartened, but mostly pleased, to discover this track on the Blu-ray, where I could hear almost instantly that the music of a few significant spots was not what I had written. Thus, my conscience pushed me to repair my original transcription. To conclude my run of new music from Fury from the Deep, I now present the greatly improved, even more accurate revision to Impeller Shaft. This making of segment will be relatively brief because I'm focusing only on the repairs to the transcription. For a rundown of the still intact material, I direct you to episode 18, part 2, where you'll have to just ignore the discussions of the following sections. My first repair is in the second phrase of the opening track, suspenseful music used as first Van Lutyens and then later the Doctor and Jamie inspect the base of the impeller. Here, the left hand has two violent outbursts in the low register. The first of those two, I corrected the last three of the 5 notes there, as well as the rhythm, which was actually based on 16th notes rather than triplets. I should have heard that. In the second of those two, the metallic sound and reverberation really got me, as I actually heard an extra note that isn't there, to say nothing of the fact that only the first of the notes I wrote was correct. Next, in the third phrase of this section, which builds up to the track's climax, I repaired the clusters I wrote at the bottom of the piano. They revealed themselves as more specific sounds. Tritones, based first on D-flat, then C. Above, the first pair of chords I wrote lost one of their notes, and this correction revealed my own composer's bias. The track starts with 4-note chords and ends with 4-note chords, so I wanted those to be 4 notes as well. But the bottom note that I originally wrote is just not there. The first chord actually makes all the more sense having transcribed Mr. Oak and Mr. Quill, episode 49, as it is the same prominent B augmented chord right there. A final, extremely minor repair is the alteration of the musical direction molto accelerando for the climax. It really isn't that molto, so I was just being dramatic. This direction is now pulled back to a simple accelerando. The second and third sections, both lines lashing out and recoiling in octaves, are intact in this revision, although I still have worries about the very last notes of the second section and each long phrase of the third. I'm sticking with it for now and probably forever. Of course, the final climactic section of the piece underwent the largest repair, for suddenly I could hear the music without Van Lutyens screaming. One of the biggest surprises was the revelation of an opening salvo using a white key cluster, followed by a rapid glissando leading into the chordal punches. This piano effect obviously got lost in all the noise when I first transcribed it. What's marvelous about the glissando is the visually dramatic way I execute it with my forearm swiping from low to high is the only way I can think of for it to have been actually achieved. It's just too rapid a sound for the hand alone to manage. Examples of the normal hand glissando are found in several episodes, including 9, 14, 17, and 14. Each phrase of this section commences with 3 sounds, often repeated chords, accenting the first. The first phrase is the odd one in that 3 different sounds open the phrase with a foamy splash. I got the general sound of this first chord correct, but did not hear the 2 following sounds until this revision. Based on F-sharp augmented, this first chord features extra colors of the flatted 5th and the sharp 9th. As in episode 48, the odd shape of this chord in the right hand meant it must use the muscle part of the thumb to play the cluster. The second chord is a stretched out C major chord, but with the tritone F sharp as its lowest note. The final sound is a single note, D natural. Following these chords is a rising line, eventually doubled in octaves. I did get the gist of this idea, but it was still more elaborate than I first transcribed. The first chord of that opening phrase is used for the second phrase, repeated here. The G sharp that follows is in fact repeatedly restruck, rather than a single ping as heard in my original transcription. Yet again, more low register effects buried by all the noise are revealed in the isolated track. Here, the left hand's chord is repeated down an octave in a drum-like boom. The final phrase uses a new chord, a bitonal sound of F sharp major below and D major above. This near exact sound was briefly heard in Robson Kidnaps Victoria, episode 50. The piercing minor second cluster heard next is intact, but once again another low register chord booms a similar one to earlier, with one note altered. To finish up here, another minor alteration in my decision to allow the damper pedal to continue to hold throughout this passage, save the opening blast. Rather than releasing it on the final chord, this imitates the reverberation that mimics the claustrophobic environment. All in all, I'm so glad I had another shot at this arrangement, and I'm thrilled that it proved to be even more interesting than I first thought. Thank you very much for allowing me a bit of revisionist history in episode 18, part 2022 of the Dudley Simpson is Doctor Who project. Thanks very much to my wonderful Patreons who make these videos happen and see them first. Patreon.com/Jess Jurkovic to subscribe. I also accept tips. Please go to coffee.com/Jess Jurkovic and contribute whatever you feel. Subscribe, like, share, and comment. See you next time.